Hiya, folks. Welcome to Azure Community MTRS User Group. My name is Nicholas, and I'm with my co-host, Kevin Green. Kevin, you want to say hi?
Hey, folks. Welcome to another episode.
Yep. So this episode is going to be based on Azure OpenAI and PowerShell. So it's going to be a fun one. So let me just do some housekeeping. Give me a minute. Okay, so can you see my screen? Yeah. So we just wanted to go over some code of conduct. So all member of this group should abide by this code of conduct, be friendly and welcoming to everyone, be patient, be thoughtful, be respectful, inclusive, and always be open and curious. So when you ask questions to the speakers, also always try to understand it and not criticize one another. Would you like to do this one, Kevin?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Nick. So we've got two more great speakers tonight, folks. So first up, we've got Vukašin Terzić, who's a solution architect and Azure MVP. Vukašin is going to be talking about how to generate your IT documentation using Azure OpenAI. So this should be some really good, interesting tips and tricks on that one. Then after Vukašin's session, we have Christian Ritter. And Christian is going to be talking about, well, his title is Transitioning from Application Access Policies to RBAC for Applications with PowerShell. So two super nerdy titles. And just before we came live, we were talking about how much nerdiness this community typically has. So I'm looking forward to learning some more stuff from the two guys tonight.
Yep. So it's going to be approximately 8:40, and our next episode will be on the 25th this month, and it's going to be doing a session on diving to text generation with Azure AI Studio. It should be a good one. Building a basic chatbot with craft ready. Sorry, can I pronounce it properly? And Azure Advisor and Well Architecture Framework by Thomas Brody. So that should be an interesting event. Let us bring the speakers on board. So the first one will be Vukašin. Sorry, I say it wrong.
Okay. Yeah. Vukašin, right?
Vukašin,
yes.
Yeah. He's cool. Gonna give us some session on Azure OpenAI documentation.
All right.
Over to you, Vukašin.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, guys. I was excited to be here with you today. I'm just going to share my screen. Let's see how that works. Entire screen and this one. All right. So thanks for the introduction, Nick and Kevin. I am not going to spend too much time talking about myself. As you already mentioned, I work as a solution architect for the Microsoft partner company for the last 8 years. My primary area of focus is solution design based on the Microsoft Cloud. I'm also MVP for the last 4 or 5 years, I believe. And I spent more than 20 years now in IT, working from at the different areas and the different roles, but this is my current role now. And I'm excited to share some insights about boring topic, which is IT documentation, and how we can leverage the power of AI that is now widely available to us, and in this case specifically Azure OpenAI, in conjunction with some other tools to hopefully streamline and perfect this documentation process. So before we start talking about what we can do, first, we need to identify some issues with IT documentation. And in the beginning, I just want to apologize. My presentation is not going to be very demo heavy. not going to show you some cool tricks. I think it's more important to understand the concepts of how we can utilize these tools in general, because every scenario, every use case will be different, and there is no like I cannot give you a tool that is ready for you to download and start using immediately. So it's better to understand how to use it, and those tools that I will be showing you later on are user-friendly and easy enough to understand that if you understand the concept and idea behind this, you should be able to replicate that by yourself. So what are some issues and the things we struggle the most when we are creating IT documentation? Apart the one that I already mentioned, it's boring, no one likes to do it. Well, first of all, it's creating it, right? And IT documentation is very important for all sorts of things, not just when you need to reference something to find the information yourself, but also to be able to, let's say, onboard new people to your team, or provide the information and proofs for some audits, or when you are troubleshooting something and you really need to look into it. And so we all know that it's important, but we all struggle with creating it. That's the first thing, creating it in the first place, and then keeping up with changes. In my case, usually when I start creating on some, like working on a new project, we create a project, we create project design, which is accurate, up to date. It's even being updated as the project goes. But then the project is implemented, and that's it. That's the end of the documentation. However, things change. Things change all the time. We keep adding new things. We keep changing things, and that's very difficult to keep up to date and edit all of those little documents that you have and update it. It's very time consuming. That's the first thing. And it's sometimes, if you're working constantly under pressure, it's difficult to justify that time that you will spend on creating documentation instead of resolving some more problematic issues. And then the last thing is, and I see this all the time, is that we create documentation that can contain, and usually that's the case, the IT documentation contains sensitive information about our systems, about some policies and other things, which are sensitive if they get in hands of a wrong person, or shared publicly or something like that. And then also we only create, like, let's say, one set of documentation where we put everything. We create huge Excel file, huge Word documents, whatever, and everything is in there. And then if someone from, let's say, HR department, or someone who's working on the asset management or something like that, requests just a part of it for that they need for their purposes, for their job to do, then we have two options. We will either give them full documentation with everything, with a lot of sensitive information that they don't need, or we will have to like copy paste or create from scratch and generate by some scripts or something information that they need. But again, this is one-time action. This is something that we do not have readily available in time for us. So as you can see, a lot of problems. And now that we have those tools available, we can resolve a lot of these problems easily. And don't get me wrong, whatever I'm going to show you today, this was doable before, but it needed much more time. It needed much more like customization and customizing every single step, where now we have intelligence which can actually help us and automate those things, and it's much less time consuming on our end when we are preparing things. So how can AI help? It can help a lot, but I also, before I show you that, I want to mention some limitations. So this is not like a perfect tool, but that being said, we can easily build tools. And instead of showing you how to build your own app, I'm going to cover those principles, but most of those limitations can be avoided by building a custom tool to do just this, and everything will be integrated in one place. So first of all, I'm talking here about creating documentation with Azure OpenAI, but Azure OpenAI cannot create documents, cannot create files for us. So that's the first limitation. Then the second thing is that in the way how it's configured now, or how am I going to show you, it depends on the data you provide. So it's not that it's going to automatically and magically scan all of your systems and pull out information from live data. That's definitely, there are ways around that, that's doable, but as on its own, it's not fully connected to your, let's say, environment to read the information from your environment. So it will be depending on the exports and other information which we will provide. Another problem is that it's not always going to be 100% accurate, and this is mostly like up to us how we define it, how we specify it, but it can still make mistakes. When you rely on a process to do things, the process is not strictly defined, which is the point. We are not defining every use case, every scenario, but we are just giving it general instructions. It can provide some false results. And then obviously consistency is not always going to be the same. We might end up having different results for asking the same question. Another issue here is data privacy. Obviously, when we are going to work with Azure OpenAI, we have those limitations that the data that we are working with will stay, at least that's the idea, within our tenant, but still we are uploading the data, we are sharing data with a tool that is secure, but if misconfigured, then this data can be shared somewhere else. And then another thing is that this will generate some cost. Using OpenAI services comes with a price tag. And so if we are running some automation or scripts before to do those things, to automate some of those things, and we were doing them on our own, let's say, virtual machine somewhere, we didn't pay anything for it. Here we are paying for the platform services. So there is some cost associated with it. Now, let's talk about how this can help us and what are the benefits of using OpenAI or AI in general to help us with documentation. And I forgot to mention, if you have any questions anytime during this, please make sure you write them down. We can answer them immediately while on topic, or there will be some time for Q&A later. So let's see, what are the benefits? First of all, we have access to LLM, large language models that are trained on a huge areas of text data. And this also includes all the technical information, let's say, provided by Microsoft or some other providers that gives you access to the technical knowledge. And this helps us to generate like a lot of text, which would be very useful when you are writing the documentation. Then it's a very, very versatile. And by that, I mean, we can create or collect the data and have one data source, but easily, without too much work on our side, we can create many different outputs that are tailored to different end users. So that's the thing I mentioned. If someone from HR requests a report or documentation on something specific, I can easily create that documentation, including only that data, and send it their way without even thinking about it. And then we can create different types of data. So I give you an example. We can use the same data set, same input documents to create a Word document, PDF document, Excel spreadsheet, wiki page somewhere on the let's say our DevOps or somewhere, and then we can also publish things like I don't know, to GitHub or something else. So we can create all of those different documentation types from the same data, customized to specific end users. So if we have, for example, documents that contain information about users, client, computers, and stations, we can just use that and create a documentation that will be suited for end user support. And then we can create a different documentation set that will be suitable for server operations and design team. And then from the same data, clearing out the sensitive information, we can create a wiki page for end users on our help desk website. And that will tell them, okay, this is the, I don't know, those are the contacts, this is domain controller, domain, and so on. So as you can see, that's very, very useful. And no one has time to do that manually. You collect information, you put it in one big file, and then you send it to those people to pick whatever they need from it. Now you don't have to worry about that. Another thing is that we all write a bunch of code. We are all trying to write the scripts. We are trying to automate things by using templates and infrastructure as code, or we are a software development company and we are writing a lot of like software and stuff like that. So we have this code, and we all know it. It is difficult to maintain the code in a way that is commented properly and everyone knows what it's doing. So with very simple implementation here, we can ask AI to read this entire repository, get our scripts, comment them, include comments in the code, and then create like README page for each of those scripts explaining what is it doing, and include like text to graphic diagrams. I don't know what's the term, like mermaid, and I will be showing that a little bit later, which gives you all of those like flow charts and things explaining the code. Another thing very useful is automated updates. So if you figure out a way how to collect this data automatically and upload it to a same place, then we can create a process which will run, check this data, and create updated version of the same documentation and keep it versioned and keep it there for us, so we can rely on it that every time we open it, it will be there, fulfilled, and up to date. And then another thing, which might not seem as a big deal, but actually it is a very big deal, is tracking changes. And not just tracking changes. We have a lot of tools to track changes, like even like SharePoint and stuff like that can track the changes of the files. But what this is very useful is to summarize changes. So if we have, let's say, application environment running in Azure, and we are exporting the information from Azure and uploading it to place where the AI can read it. We can create a version every day. Every time it runs, it will create a different file with a different timestamp or something like that. And then we can create a process which will check today's version and yesterday's version, and in a clear text and with examples and everything, do the summarization for us and explain what changed since yesterday or since the last time we uploaded it. And that's very useful, more useful than usually people think, but it's very useful when you can see what was changed in your environment, and you have this history of changes written clearly in a plain text, and you don't have to go and dig to this information by yourself. So those are some of the benefits, and how this works. I'm just going to go back one slide, not forward, back, to show some of those limitations and how we are going to avoid them. So first one, you cannot create documents. Yes, that is true. But as with most of the Microsoft services, we can use APIs to do this. And so part of today's demo will be connecting Azure PowerShell or PowerShell to our OpenAI and running those prompts from PowerShell, and then we can work with the results. So the idea is that we will tell it, okay, create me this HTML document or whatever, CSV document, and we will get that CSV document back to our PowerShell, from which we can then pipe it to creating actually the file, and then what we can do with that file, whatever we want. Let's say upload it to a storage account or somewhere to a SharePoint. So that's the first solution. The second part is dependency on provided data. As I mentioned, we are not going to demo here how to use OpenAI to collect the data in a way that it's directly connected and directly collecting the data. Instead of that, we will assume that we already have some data collected. And by that, I mean, it's very difficult to fit this to a usable scenario that fits everyone. People have their documentation written manually or exported from a very different systems, like from their HR system, from their finance system, from their device managements, from their identity managements. They have exports now, but people are using more and more cloud, so they can just go to Azure portal and click like export on a view, or you can collect data with some custom queries and so on, or with the custom scripts, and create those data sets and keep the documentation in a way that you have a bunch of different exports. But those exports are not very user-friendly. It's sometimes difficult to connect the dots. And also, they're all in different formats, in different sizes, in different formatting. And it's not something that you can easily just give out to someone. But it's still a documentation explaining few things, showing the current status of the environment. But the documentation is not just an export, like a snapshot showing, like a spreadsheet showing, okay, those are my Azure VMs. That's not what the documentation is about. Documentation needs to cover other things like dependencies, like descriptions, like explanation, what that process is doing and why is it doing that, and things like that, which you cannot simply download and generate by exporting things from your identity management. And so that's where the real power of this is, to work with those data sources and get the results you want. So I think that's enough talk. Let's just jump on a quick demo. And I mentioned before, I did not prepare this in a way that's to show you like super duper demo of it, but I'm just going to explain the principle of how to achieve and how to get there and what are some limitations and things that we need to think about. All right, so just to verify, are there any questions or can I continue with the explanation? Looks like no questions. All right. So to save some time, I already created some of those services because some of them take few minutes, so we are going to skip that. And also, I believe if you are watching this page with Azure Community Enthusiasts, I believe you already seen how to create some of those services and how to configure them. So we are just going to skip those. I already have, and I will show you what I have here. So I'm going to start with this storage account. And in here, I created a couple of things, and you can see here what we are going to demo today. So I have export from Azure Networks. I have exports about virtual machines and about my subscriptions. So those are the exports that you can normally get by opening subscriptions in Azure and just download them. And then I have a simple script here, which I will be showing to my artificial intelligence and asking to do some things with it. So that's the storage account. And for us, we will be using this as a storage, but keep in mind that Azure OpenAI service can work with many different sources of data. And I was just testing, and I don't have that in this tenant because I don't have a SharePoint here, but I'm just testing integration with SharePoint, where you can point it to your SharePoint site. And I think that's going to be very, very useful, since a lot of those companies, Microsoft-based companies, have SharePoint and save their documentation there. That's typically where you will put it. You put it either in Teams or directly on SharePoint, and that will be very useful. So you can just point it to the whole thing. But you will see also that later that once we start using PowerShell, we don't necessarily need to work with the data directly from here. We can also work with the data that PowerShell can access to. So downloading anything from any repository or local files or anything like that, that will be very usable. All right, so what else do I have here? I created Azure OpenAI service. This is just a simple deployment. I don't have anything special there to show. I will show you how to configure and how we are using this AI chat. And the last thing I had to create was a search service with a simple index for the storage account. So that's already there. If you would like to replicate this, then I think the easiest way is to go and create your Azure OpenAI service. I believe this is still in preview, and you still have to request to get access to it. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not seeing the preview button here anymore. But I believe it is, and you still need to have it enabled in your tenant. Okay. So in here, I created a deployment. I'm currently using GPT-4 model. Whatever is available in your region. Oh, thanks for fixing that. Whatever is available in your region, use it. I just selected GPT-4 because that was available to me.
Sorry, Vukašin, sometimes can you zoom in on some of the windows? Because I think Kristen couldn't see it.
Sure. So that's a good point. Let's see how we can make this bigger. Is this good enough? No, maybe too big.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks.
All right, let's see. I'm just going to be stuck in this one now, but if I ever switch to a different tab, I will make sure to zoom them as well. Okay, so let's see what are we doing now. So in here in the chat, and by the way, I've been playing with the assistant. I've been playing with this assistant now recently. I'm not going to show it today in the demo, but it's actually a very good tool to work with. So let's go back here to chat. And just quickly, what I will try to show you now. Where is my... Oh, okay. I used to see this next to each other, but now because I zoomed in, it's like this. Maybe I can hide this as well. So first thing, we need to configure our chat playground here to work with our own data, and that's what I did. I basically added blob storage using with this search and created an index. That's what I showed you. And as I showed before, in my blob storage, I only have those couple of files. And the other thing, what we need to do is to configure the prompt here. I did not enter any information here, so we will need to explain to our chat assistant what is the job, what is his job, and what we expect it to help us with, and basically explain how to get the answers in the way we need. Now, think about this system message as a place where you will do a lot of like if else, if then in your script. You don't have to do that. You can basically just tell it here in the clear text, and you can expect to get the required result. Before we start, I'm just going to verify that it has access, and I did not test it here, that it has access to our data. So that's the first requirement. So what Azure subscriptions do I have? Let's just verify that the data is accessible. If it tells me that cannot read my subscriptions, yeah. Okay. That's not expected. I need to tell it to read. Okay. Okay, something is wrong here. Let's see. Troubleshooting. But I did enable it. Okay, so what I'm just trying to verify is that the chat assistant that you just seen here has actually access to those 5 files that I uploaded. And I actually did verify that just before, and then I deleted it, and then I uploaded the files again. So, but let's worry about that a little bit later. I don't want to lose now the point, what I'm trying to explain here. So assuming that we have files available, and I'll fix that in a minute, that's not a difficult fix. Let's think about what we are supposed to do here and how we are going to configure it. So assuming that we have access to the files that I just uploaded, and this chat playground is able to go through those text files and pull out the information I provided, we have to tell it what to do with that data. So I'm just going to make this simple, but think about this in a big picture. If you are really going to create a chat AI assistant, then you can make it multi-purpose, right? You can make it available for you to answer your question. You can export it as an app and have it available to your, let's say, IT operations team to ask questions directly. That's one purpose, not something that we are showing today. And then the second purpose will be to, if you direct it to create you a document, you have to define what will be the output and how that document will look like. And for that, you need to be very specific, or you will end up getting a different document every single time that will look differently in different order and stuff, they include different information. And by doing that, you are not getting very consistent result, which is a problem with the documentation that you want to keep up to date and get used to it. So for that, you need to be very specific. And so let's try to achieve that specific description. If you are asked to create document, you will create HTML file. HTML, I don't really like HTML documentation, but again, it's a good thing to show within this demo because we can play with the shapes and sizes of HTML document. That will include information. Document format will be background, I don't know, white. Let's do something. No, I don't like yellow. Okay, never mind. White, margin 10. What else? Tables, table lines, because it usually creates an empty line, like no lines, so 1 pixel solid black. Okay, for each table include description of what it contains, and let's say if any table value is stopped, make it red. If value is deallocated, let's make this orange, and if deallocated, make the text red. Okay, so now I gave it completely basic description of how I want to have this HTML file formatted, and the HTML file format, and so the result of my request will be a bunch of HTML code. Again, running that from here is not going to create the document for me, but running that from PowerShell will give me back the same result, and then I can work with that result to, say, create a document, something.html. Okay, so if you are asked to create documentation for script, do the following. Add comments as much as possible explaining what each part of code is doing. Create markdown page with description and include mermaid flowchart. Okay, so now it knows that if I ask for a document, it will create HTML file. If I ask about the documentation for the script, it's going to give me a different type of output. And I'm not being very specific here because I don't want to waste time now of everyone typing this, but go a little bit deeper. You can definitely change the tone of how it's writing or how it is responding to you. So if this is something that you will run as a user, you would like to get different tone of the answer. You definitely want to be specific in the design of the end document. You can say what will be the size of the title and so on. And you can also include a CSS file, right? If you are talking about the HTML file, then you can have your separately CSS file that you already went through, that you already fine-tuned and configured, and so you can just have that file ready, and you can completely ignore giving it orders on how to format things, because you will have that handled with your CSS file, which will be somewhere on the side, ready for you to use it, and you don't have to worry about it during the creation process. And the last thing is that we can go on and on. We can configure a different output. So I can be more specific and say, okay, so now I need to answer, I don't know, create a wiki page for my end user support. And that documentation will include only specific set of data. So we can go ahead and add that there as well. But anyway, before we can continue, let's test our theory. This is all just theory for now. Let's test our theory and see how this will work. However, I'm not sure why I'm not able to access my data. So let's see, advanced settings, limit response to your data content. That's correct. And data is indexed. I have the index here. I have the documents. Let's take a look here, data files. I have the documents. But those are wrong documents. Huh. Okay. Those are CSV. That's the ones that I deleted. Maybe that's the wrong. Let's test this out. Let's go back to my chat and let's see if you can find Are we there? Okay, yes, so it can access my script. So I'm just going to show you that script quickly here. And by the way, this is created by GPT. It's completely just a sample example. Oh, can you see it? No, you can't. Okay, I'm sorry, I forgot to change this. Do you want me to switch to a white template? That's the first question. And the second question is, how can I zoom this in? I don't see my mouse now, so I'm trying to move it, but I don't see. Oh, I can, I can see it in the shared screen. Interesting, but I cannot see it on my screen. So, okay. So anyway, simple script. You don't need to worry about what script is and what script is doing. And I apologize if you cannot see it, but the purpose.
You can try press Command and plus to zoom in and see if that works.
I already tried. Okay, this is my screen.
Like the magnifying glass.
Yeah, no, this is now my screen magnifier, but I don't like using that because it's a little bit. Okay, but this is a little bit bigger, isn't it? Anyway, what the script is doing is basically just checking, getting all the virtual machines and checking and doing some operation based on tag. The script is not relevant at all. What's relevant is that does not have any comments in it. And also, it's not a script that you should have in your environment. Doing all of those actions that are here, you should be doing by Azure policy instead. So, for example, enabling backup for your production VMs and adding locks, that should not be done by a script. You can easily add that with the policy. So that's not the purpose. The purpose is that there are no comments here, and we are going to ask it to do the things that we predefine. I'm not going to give it a specific instructions. If you look back here at my previous prompt, I told this AI assistant that if you are asked to create documentation for the script, do the following. So without going too much into details, I'm just going to do exactly that. Create. And the expectation is that I will get comments in the code, I will get a short wiki description, and I will get the flow chart for that script. Let's make this a little bit bigger and let's see where is it going. I'm going to make this just a little bit smaller so you get a better view of it. Here is the title, here is the description, here is the flow diagram, and did not do exactly what I wanted. It did not add the comments to the code itself. So that's probably something we will have to work a little bit on explaining. But it did most of the things that I asked. And doing this manually is very painful process. And also doing this by automation can make sure that all of your scripts are treated the same way and you get the documentation. Now, to show you what this actually is and how does this look like, I need to copy this and import it somewhere where you can see it. I did not think that through completely. So how are we going to do it? Just quickly, I'm just going to go log into my GitHub. 1 second. And upload it there. Oh, do you know if Mermaid is visible in VS Code? Does anyone know that? If I go here to preview, no, it's not. Okay. All right, 1 second. And I think we are almost done with this demo, so I'm not going to take too much of your time. Just give me 1 second. Mermaid and creating new file. And I'm going to save it. And let's see, commit changes. And I will share that with you in a second. I just realized I'm doing this on a screen that you cannot see. Okay. So the code that was just created for me, the result of that code is this. But let's go back and upload the whole thing so you can get the final. Okay, can you see this now? Okay, here's the mermaid diagram that we would never be able to create manually. At least for me, this will be like something that I really don't like spending time with. And this is creating this diagram for the piece of code that I just wrote. I would only do that if that's like something that a customer requested and you are providing documentation with your code. You would not do it for the normal scripts, like operational scripts that you do. But it took just a minute for the OpenAI to do it for me. And for me, this looks like a fully functional. It is really showing all the information that it's supposed to show. So there are no bugs in this one. And the workflow of the script is get VMs, check the tag. If the tag is production, then you do something. If the tag is dev, then you do something else. If it's demo, you do something else. And then you loop it again. So this is definitely correct. And for someone who is looking at the script for the first time, this will provide much more than words or comments inside the script. And I think this is really useful. I'm personally not using Mermaid so much. I'm using a different text-to-diagram languages, but this is a very good example that can be easily demonstrated here for the script we wrote. Now, that's the first part. I'm just gonna continue. And now, obviously, if we did not run this with manually here, but we did it through PowerShell, I will get this document. I will get this document not this document. I will get this result in a PowerShell variable, which I will then create that document and upload it to GitHub, upload it wherever I want it to be. So a lot of automation around it will still have to be done by you. But rather than spending time writing this and creating this, I think it's definitely very useful tool, and you can run this on scale. You can just say, okay, go through all of those files in my SharePoint library and do this for all of them. And you will get the results back. When I was testing this, or when I have it used in production, I'm using a similar wording, and you notice here that I asked where is my panel now? I cannot see it. I asked it here to edit the code and add comments to it. Unfortunately, that did not happen now, so we'll have to make some changes there as well. And the last part, which is not working now, but I don't think it's necessary to go ahead and show it, is that we can create those HTML documents. So when I ask this chat that I created to make me an HTML document, it will go and combine all of this information about my subscriptions, about my resource group, about my virtual machines, and it will read the document and create the HTML file based on that information. Now, are there any questions while I try to fix this? Yeah, those are not the right files. So I will have to upload a new file and process it, but I don't want to waste too much time for this demo now.
Vukašin, there's no questions coming in at the moment.
Okay.
Everyone's watching away, but nothing. Actually, there's one. How important is the prompt construction in terms of getting decent output? That's from
right. So that's the most important thing that you need to worry about. Actually, I'm purposely not showing you the PowerShell for working with it, because basically that is all you do is run an API, connect to your environment, and you send the prompt, and then you work with that prompt. So the PowerShell part is not very interesting. The most important part is actually construction of that prompt, because that will guarantee you what results do you get. From just a different perspective from how we used to do this before. We have been automating documentation creation process for a long time. I've been doing that with the different scripts, with the different tools, even like third-party tools where they will like crumble up imports and create you export in your own like preference. There are many modules that you can download for PowerShell to work with Excel files, to work with all sorts of files. And all of that requires a lot of time, a lot of like customization, and really going and saying, okay, I'm pulling out information. If the thing that I wrote here, if my, I don't know, there is error message, make it red. If there is a warning, make it orange, and things like that. So you have to put all of that in your script or automation tool to get the result you want. And now you have to do the same thing again, basically. But instead of writing it in a code, hard coding those things, you can be more flexible and you can write things in a text, as a text. But you still have to write it, and you still have to include all the necessities. And it's obviously something that's not going to work on a first try. You will have to do a lot of like trial and error until you get that preferred result. And getting, and I don't know, I can show you here in my test environment. Yesterday I created this document, and this took me like 5 minutes. And this is using like a simple CSS file. And so basically it is going to read those tables and do those things as I wrote status colors and stuff like that. This was all created by text input. I did not say this width of this table is this many pixels. I did not write any of that. I basically just said, okay, create me this, format table this way, do it in this order, add this text to it, and if the status is something, then change the color. Right. So this basically shows you the importance of that prompt. And this page is super ugly. Don't create your documentation like this. But I didn't want to waste time on that. I just wanted to test the functionalities and how it works.
So just conscious of time for Christian as well. So we're okay. We've got a couple more minutes left, coming up to 8:30 p.m. over here, and Christian, I guess it's probably about 9:30 p.m. for Christian in Germany. So I see there's one more question come in from Leo.
Okay.
But Leo, we might take that one offline, and when Vukašin is finished, maybe you could just respond to that in the chat if you didn't mind, Vukašin.
Sure, definitely not. I will be available here during the Christian's presentation, so I'm available to answer any questions if you need, shoot to me. So just the last summary about this. Think about using it to process the data, input the data into it, tell the AI what to do with your data, and play with the results. I've been getting some fantastic results for those wiki pages for all of my scripts and information. I created a bunch of wiki pages in DevOps. This works very well with the DevOps pipelines as well. So it is something that you can play with, and it can save you a lot of time to keep the information up to date in all of your documents. Okay, those were my closing words.
Closing comment.
Okay.
I think that's awesome, Vukašin. Really cool. Creating mermaid diagrams, and even from somebody who's, and I say this nearly every episode we're on, I'm not a developer, I'm an IT pro, and even looking at things like Markdown documentation, things like that, I think it's really cool. And just showing your system prompt in the chat playground, I think the takeaway for me is, if you get that system prompt detailed enough, and a little bit of trial and error, I guess, right? But once you get it nailed, then you have your automation, and your documentation should just flow every time you add your content into that storage account.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can also use that search indexer, the preview ones, Nick, that we showed for Azure OpenAI connecting into SharePoint. You could use that as an other potential area if you didn't want to take your documents and drop them into a storage account. So really cool stuff. So look, we'll finish there. So Vukašin, and for your session, Vukašin. So if you don't mind, Leo has a question in the chat, and it'd be great for you to respond to that one. And Christian, we're going to hand over to you now, and you can show the audience your session on transitioning from application access policies to RBAC for applications with PowerShell.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. It was a great session so far. So hopefully I can keep up the standard. And my session is more or less a little bit like a walkthrough about some things I have encountered doing some application access policies. So I did this and I blogged about it, and afterwards I just got some feedback via LinkedIn that the application access policies are going to be deprecated and will be replaced with RBAC for application, which has a lot of potential. And yeah, I want to show you a little bit at first about me. So the biggest part is the last line here in this custom object. I believe in the demo gods because hopefully everything went fine. Let's see. If you want to get in touch with me, you can always refer to my link tree or just search for HC Ritter. Okay, let us compare the application access policies versus the RBAC for applications. So on the left we have the AAPs, and on the right side the RBAC. So like I said before, AAP is going to be deprecated soon. It's the ongoing process of this. So RBAC for application should be now state of the art. One not so cool thing about the application access policies is that the targeting is not dynamically. So which means I just can point to just this distribution group, but not a dynamically distribution group. So, for example, on RBAC, we can use recipient filters, like we can do this in a dynamic distribution group, which is fantastic in my understanding. Both of them rely on the Exchange Online commands, so you have to use this module as well, for sure. And what is this good for? Yeah, when we think of Microsoft Graph and application or the app registrations or company applications itself, everywhere we have some kind of EVS permission scope, like Exchange, mail.read or mail.read-write, and context and everything related to the Exchange part of Microsoft Graph. We can restrict the access, which means I can say, okay, this app registration only tackles down to 5 people, for example, or I can exclude any C-level, for example. So if my app registration will list some mails, then I can say, okay, please only do this for this handful of mailboxes, which are on one criteria for recipient filter, and that I can implement with the RBAC for application. So I'm not a big fan of large PowerPoint slides, so I would like to say let's dive in. Let's see some code and stick from now on with the Visual Studio Code. So the screen, the font size should be fine, or should I increase a bit?
Font size is absolutely fine. I can see it, no
Perfect.
problem.
Okay,
Thanks,
perfectly. Perfect. Okay, then let's do some basic connects. if you wonder, I'm more or less fascinated with the PowerShell. So yeah, just for the connect, I use splatting because I don't want to scroll to the right to fit this on screen. So let us do a basic connect. At first, we connect to the Microsoft Graph with these scopes. I always put user read all in. It's just a habit, so don't worry. And then we connect the Exchange Online. So let us do this in our terminal. Maybe I have some credentials which are hopefully. Oh no, I have to say use please this one. So, and if everything is good, I should, yeah, be connected. Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead. And first of all, I just want to gather all app registrations in the context of Microsoft Graph, including their permissions. So how can we archive that? At first, we get all app roles, which means, okay, okay, get here the service principal and the app ID, which we want to query is the app ID for Microsoft Graph. So yeah, it's basically just this free at the first bit of it, then the C. And then we want to have all of the app roles, which we need later. So do this for now. And if somebody could tell me how to get rid of the, you want to really paste that much content to this, I would be really appreciated. So first, let us inspect this variable. It's filled with a lot of information. Let's do this by a bit more. So which would be good to see. Okay, I guess display name could be really great. Yeah. So you see, okay, there are many app roles that we have, which is fine. And now we want to gather all of our applications. So with the command get mg application, I will gather them, then I query them via for each loop, generate PS custom object, and just want to see, okay, what's the display name, what's the app ID, what's the ID itself of the application, what's the service principal ID, which we then get from another command, the get mg service principal by app ID, because the app ID, like we can see here, we receive from the get mg application command. Yeah. So, and then we're just dotting for the ID property. And then we want to know which scopes are related to our application. So if you just want to see, okay, which scopes are affected for each application, you can use just this little code snippet, and then you will get a quite fine list of our of all of the scopes for each application. So we can keep track, for example. So if you're just running documentations all the time, and you can let it flow into the change management process of a company, for example. Yeah. So then we get here the service principal app role assignment. So the whole Microsoft Graph PowerShell module is kind of noisy in terms of comment design. But yeah, it's descriptive on the other hand. Then we just paste in our service principal ID, which we got earlier. So we are double assignment in a PowerShell. We are double assignment for a property in a PS custom object. We also create this variable, which we can later use, for example, in the next property, like we do here. So I can reference to it and use it as a property for our parameter. And then, therefore, we get all of our app role IDs, and then we do it in place for each loop again, So you see more or less it's loop and loop and loop. And then for our app roles, which we gathered a bit earlier, we just make a simple basic where query where we say, okay, the ID should be match our app role ID, and therefore we get all of the scopes by dotting to the value. So let us see this in action, because description of a describing snippet is fine, but showing them is a lot more worthy, in my opinion. Let's make this so shouldn't be taking too long, because in my test environment I only prepared some applications, and there you can see, okay, we have just something from LinkedIn, something from Exchange Online, box setup here, graph start. This one I've created with a scope of mail read write, which we later wanna see if we are, I like to say, protected. Salesforce and so on, and there's another one, the Mighty app. So you can see, okay, there's always you see also the scopes, which you can also dot source. So just make a quick query where, let's say, display name Q. Let's go by this. Take the Mighty app. Mighty app should be better in this case. Yep. I'm sorry, my fault. Okay, therefore we can now say I guess it can do by for eaching and the scopes. Yeah. And there you can see, okay, we have the mail read write, context read write. So all of the stuff of the EVS or the EWS. Yeah, and this could be fine, like I said, for change management tracking and so on. But we want to dig a little bit deeper, like to say. So now we want to enrich our data, which we have generated here, with some more details. So the app roles, assignment, and so on, is basically the same like we did before. But in this case, I just assigned the services principal ID and the scopes to variables in the first place of our loop. Because when we see here, I iterate through all MG applications by piping, and now I just do a basic for each loop and redirect the output stream to the variable. So first of all, just get the service principal ID from our app ID property. I get the ID, so basically it's ID and ID and ID. Then again, like we did before, we gather all of the scopes. Then we ask for, okay, please only get me all EVS related permission scopes, or where scopes contains or match some of them. So even if I have some scopes which are not related to them, at least if one mail context calendar or mailbox settings permission is in it, then we proceed and create now our custom objects. And then we just ask basically extenders if application access policy is active or the RBAC for application is active, basically by just doing is a null or empty Boolean operator for the commands get application access policy from the Exchange Online module. And there we ask, okay, where our app ID is our app ID. And if it's not null, then yay, hooray! There's an application access policy implemented. Otherwise, we do the same thing for RBAC for application. And there we ask just get management role assignment. And there we just need ask for the app property if it's our service principal ID. This was the reason why I asked for this data here in the first place from each loop for every app registration. Okay, so basic. We do basically the same like before. We just throw all of this in our terminal. And I have to say double enter. This takes a little bit longer than before, but quite long. Why? I tried this demo so many times. Okay. I thought this was longer than 23 seconds, but yeah, maybe should. So, and then basically we can say, okay, for our test app rec, where we have the mail.read-write permission, there's no AAP active or even not the RBAC for application active. And we can see, okay, for our Mighty app, we have both in place. That's fine. Now, it's not that fine because we should stick to one of them. And best thing would be if we just stick for the RBAC and not the AAP. So this could be also a good indicator. Just to see, okay, if nothing is active or both of them is active or just AAP is active, then we could alert the user that in our tenant, we should make some changes. Yeah, so just a basic script logic to tell the user who's running our script, hey, you may need to adjust some things and go for RBAC. So, okay, that's more nice than before. And now we want to dig deeper into it. So we can extend our custom object with some more data. So which means I just say, okay, I want to gather all of the application access policy, all information that I need. So at first, is this active? Would be nice to know. Then which scope identity is used, and then what are our targets? So who's member of the distribution group? All important things to know, because if we want to switch to RBAC, then we need to know who was affected before, and then we need to create our RBAC application policy with the same information or with the same data. Yeah. So I basically asked, okay, if our application access policy has any content, like we did with the NAT compare once above. So with our NAT query here before. So, but I do this here in the first place, like here, and like here. It's the same query, it's like the same, and then I do for the assignment of the application access policy in our custom object. I ask just, is it not empty? If it's not null, if it's null, then I return null. Otherwise, I generate another PS custom object as a child object for our PS custom object. So inheritance, just with is active, sure. Like I said, and then the scope identity and the targets like I've described before. And the same thing again for the ABAC for application. If it's there, then it's probably active. Then we have here the role assignee. We also can all gather this out of the get management role assignment command. Then the customer resource group, resource scope, sorry. And afterwards, I want to see the recipient filter, just to see, okay, how this is implemented. Like here. Just with the command get mg management scope, and then we need the identity of our custom resource scope. And that's basically all. So let us do this also in our terminal, just to see what we will receive out of this. But if you have just questions in the meantime, just paste them in the chat, and hopefully someone is telling me that you have pasted in and I could answer it directly. So, and then we can say, okay.
Christian, there's just one from Alan. Sorry if I've missed you answering this. He just wants to know, is the script up on GitHub?
Yeah, more or less. It's on Gist currently, because I developing some Azure scripts right now. So I want to pack them into yeah, it's probably available. I just have to send you this over, or you follow me on LinkedIn, because all the time something is new I posted there. So yeah, I can later on give it to you. You can spread the word, or we can manage it somehow.
Awesome.
But
thank you so much.
It's online. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And then we can see right here. Okay, it's null, not empty for test app rec. App registration. And for Mighty app, we have the application access policy in place, and also the ABAC, like we have seen before. Maybe we should dig into it a bit. Sorry. So do the same error over and over again. So, which means, okay, now we want to ask, okay, from our object where display name is Mighty app, and then it's want to see the scopes one more time, like we did before. But now we can also go for our, I think I called it ABAC for application. Yeah. So there we can see, okay, the management scope recipient filter is primary SMTP address for some of my demo users, or Brian J, who's also a demo user for my tenant. So I can see, okay, this is my recipient filter, explicitly for that. I also can point to a dynamic distribution group. What's the matter? Or I could copy the recipient filter from a dynamic distribution group, because the language for them are basically the same. So there's no need to be worried about, okay, do I have to rewrite it otherwise than I did before? Nope. You can just do it like you did for dynamic distribution groups. Now we can just have a look for the application access policy instead of the ABAC. Let's see. Okay. There you can see, okay, there's only one target, which is just basically a user account, I guess. So get ABAC should be fine. Identity. I guess I can use this target. Nope. Content is maybe it's MG user. Also, it could be totally wrong. It could be something totally different. Nope. Okay. It's just a target which I have defined way before. So nope. Dang. Okay, sorry, I missed the thing. So do this by this, and by that. It's the user. Maybe it could be also a deleted user as well, because the demo tenants are running out after 90 days, and yeah, could be a dead user. So no worry about that. But as you can see, if it would be a legitimate user, then we would see the user object. Therefore, we could take this with us and create a management scope recipient filter out of it. So I just also prepared some links just to show you some bit more from Microsoft Learn, for example, like how we could do this. Like I have said before, we could point to calendar context, mail, and mailbox settings. This is now for the application access policy, the Learn page. You also can test for it, but you can do the same basically with the RBAC. I just wanted to show. I just wanted to show that dynamic distribution groups are not allowed. Parameter. Okay, thought I saw something like that dynamic distribution groups are not allowed explicit on this website. But I'm sorry, I totally missed the point. We can make a vice versa conclusion out of it, that it's not allowed if we wait a second. Oh yeah, here's it. Like I complained before, I should do it also. Scale it up a bit. Okay. You can't use recipients that are security principles with parameter. For example, the following type of recipient won't work. So we can't point to dynamic distribution groups. And that's a big bummer, I think, because like I said, okay, so you don't have to keep track of all the users which are allowed or not, or if there's a new person coming to the C-level of your company, and you just have to remember, okay, I have to add them to this group so he won't be affected by some automations that are using that app registrations and so on. So doing this more or less a little bit dynamically via recipient filter, in my opinion, it's way more than we need. Funny thing is, some sites on Microsoft say, okay, the application access policies, like I said, are deprecated. But from my point of view, it's quite hard to find. So I just can stick to retirement note that someone has written. Like here, note, app access policies will soon be replaced by RBAC for applications. He stumbled up on this note. I did this also, but right now I can't find it other than on the screenshot. But even if they stop deprecating this, like they stopped for the Azure AD module, the MS Online module, and they do it by end of this month. So if you just have Powershell commands that lay on the Azure AD module or the MS Online module, you need to hurry to shift them to Microsoft Graph. So maybe the time period, they have extended, so it's not included on the documentation anymore, or I'm just unable to find it. But more or less, you see the benefits from RBAC compared to AAP. So, like I said, okay, how to transition from one to another, from AAP to RBAC. Now, basically, it's quite easy. So you with these with this with that little snippets like I have shown you, you see, okay, what are the targets? Who's affected by my app registration? If I have application access policy in place, then I can just take this object, create for the targets, and then create basically this recipient filter just to stick to mailboxes which don't have many in common, like title or something like that, for a proper recipient filter. So this is basically the real transition from one to another. And I also would suggest to stick with just basic recipient filter, find a common criteria to generate them, and you should be fine and to go. You should be fine. Yeah. And basically, that's all I wanted to show for now. So if you have further questions, don't hurry. Share them with me. I'm very happy to answer, hopefully, all of them. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Christian. I don't see any other questions. Alan just had a follow-on question from whether or not it's up on GitHub. And the question is it the one that you posted an update on Twitter recently?
Yes, basically, yeah.
Okay, cool. If you have a minute or two, Christian, if you have the link, maybe drop it into the chat when you get a chance then, and grab it. Otherwise, folks, just track Christian down on Twitter and or LinkedIn, and you should be able to find it there.
So yeah, just give me 1 or 2 minutes. Maybe Vukašin would say something else, so I have time to find a link to drop it here.
That's fine. Even offline is okay. It's
yeah,
cool.
that's fine.
I
wasn't aware that's getting replaced anyway. The app-based deprecation. That's quite cool.
Yeah, some cool stuff. I'm always learning at these events. Always learning. After 2 sessions now, I've learned some new stuff. So thank you so much, guys.
A lot of Powershell.
It was a pleasure.
So yeah, I don't think there's any other questions come in. Vukašin and Christian, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Nick, do you want to close out and let the guys go to bed?
So thanks for joining, guys. And so let me just play a small video for our next episode, and then we can just close it. Thanks.